she was supposed to go to work the next day.
Okay.
And that night, the night before, my husband and I got a phone call, and she was with a guy, and they were arrested.
Wow.
So I had never had a child in trouble, period.
Right. What did you feel in that moment?
I mean, I can't, every time I go back to the place, it takes me to a place where it's just very overwhelming. I've come a long way because all I did was cry, but it was very, very, it was devastating. If I can use the word, it was devastating.
I can only imagine.
So imagine your child going to prison or going to jail. Like, we're going to start with jail, going to jail. And then I'm still trying to run a business. I'm going in the middle of the night to pick up my 2 grandchildren. Okay. So my life changed in a moment.
Good idea. Now we buying merch. That's ghetto. Payment miss. Ooh, the ghetto. Say she quit. Ooh, the ghetto. Late on your rent. Rent is ghetto. New event. Ooh, the ghetto. Invoice in. That ain't ghetto. Money spin. Oh, that's ghetto. Hold on. It's kind of ghetto being a CEO.
What's up, coworker? Don't you want to link together and get a live podcast experience of this Ghetto CEO podcast? When you love to see Cody on the couch and your favorite entrepreneurs here in Atlanta, well, you got to tap in and come to our happy hour live podcast experience December 16th of this year. Yes, December 16th, 2023. We are doing a live Ghetto CEO podcast. And guess what, y'all? I'm bringing some of y'all to the couch. All you got to do is click the link below, and you can either get your ticket or get on the wait list so that you can be able to get on this couch. Make your plans, grab your flights, get your rooms, because listen, the Ghetto CEO Live Podcast is not something that you want to miss. So December 16th, I want to see you guys there. Listen, last time we had the drinks flowing, we had the vibes going, we had a little dance, we had bars and all the things. So get in the room for the next Ghetto CEO Live Podcast, and I'll see you guys there. Now back to the episode. Welcome back to another episode of the Ghetto CEO Podcast, where we talk about all things being a CEO. A lot of people don't talk about the hardships, the tears we cry at night, trying to live out our dreams and our purposes. Nobody asked for this, but since we're here, we're going to tell the real authentic story. And what we do here at the Ghetto CEO Podcast is we go find people that want to tell their story. They want to actually share what's going on in their lives so that we can know, like, we ain't going through this alone, okay? Now, today, I have an amazing young lady, okay? Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Listen,
I'm ready as I can be.
I am so excited for this episode because, listen, your story is just very inspirational. And I think a lot of times when we are watching podcasts, people are like, well, you know, the industry is kind of getting a little saturated now, right? And people are only interviewing like celebrities and things of that nature. And I'm like, real people got real stuff going on too.
Absolutely.
Right? So welcome to the Ghetto CEO Podcast. Let them know who you are.
I am Charlynn Olgesby, and I have a boutique. I'm the owner of Divine Boutique, and I'm on social media, Divine Boutique 912.
Yes. Listen, we finna get into it. So when you think of one word to describe your journey in this CEO life, what is that one word?
Ghetto.
Right.
It's been a ghetto.
Yes.
And I say that because the journey hasn't been easy. Mm-hmm. So it does get a little ghetto. Okay. When you have to become everything and everybody in your business, that can become ghetto. Yeah. I mean, that's and it has been, I can think of 1,000,001 words to use. It is, it's stressful. It's still, there's freedom. There are a lot of words, adjectives that I can use to describe what being a CEO is. And I've learned that throughout my journey. I've only been doing this for 5 years, but it has been mostly, but it's been rewarding.
Yeah, absolutely.
I have to say it has been rewarding. And
absolutely.
It still is rewarding.
So you said stress, right? And I think that's a word that a lot of us use, like this stressful.
Exactly.
Like, but what was one of the trigger points for you of stress in your business?
My personal life. Okay. My personal life took a toll. It kind of interrupted when I first began my journey as a business owner.
What did it look like?
Well, I started my business in 2018. Okay. And
This your first business?
This is my first business.
Okay.
I knew I was in the medical field for many years, since 2001. And I always wanted to care for people. Mm-hmm. but I always knew that I wanted to do more. I always loved fashion. I've been loving that since I was a little girl, and when I was younger, my mom had me in modeling. So, and I always tell my mom now, I never knew all the things that you had me in back then that I was going to have to use today. And I say that because I have to be everything. You know, there are people that have teams. I don't have that. I am my team right now.
Right, absolutely.
And so, you know, it became stressful on the back end of it because when I initially started, I had an opportunity that was presented to me to go into a brick and mortar. And, you know, when you first start business, you're like trying to get out there as hard as you can to put yourself in front of people, but you make mistakes.
Absolutely.
That was a mistake, but it was a learning
So you did go
mistake.
into the brick and mortar. Okay.
I went in it with someone.
Okay.
Number one lesson that I learned from that, never to do that again.
Okay, so never had, what about the partnership you felt like wasn't right?
Oh gosh, there was so much dishonesty. There was so much dishonesty. And the thing about it is because I live in a small place, a small area, which I'm from Jacksonville, Florida, but my husband is from a small area. And so I don't know a lot of people. I've been there for years, but I still don't know a lot of people. I just don't. But so when I accepted the opportunity to come in and rent a part of the young lady's area, I didn't know who she was. I didn't really do a background check on her, you know, basically trying to find out who she was from other people. I just trust people. I trust people. I've learned not to a fault. I've learned not to trust people as much. But I went into that.
Don't you hate that?
I hate that.
Like, it's like something happened and it's like, dang, I was nice, but now y'all making me crazy.
Exactly. You know, and I had, and there were a lot of times because people think that if you're Christian and you're living for God, that you're not human. But I'm quick to tell somebody, I ain't been saved all my life. Let's just get that straight. And I will get you together. Yes, and I will get you together. And then if I have to go and repent, Lord, forgive me, I'll do that too. But I had to learn I'm not going to say that everything about it was bad because there were I learned a lot with that. And but there were a lot of things that were being done behind my back. And people always, not everybody, but there are a lot of people, especially women. We really don't want to see each other succeed.
Absolutely.
And when people would walk into the store, they were going to my side of the store instead of her side of the store.
So both of y'all own boutiques.
Right. Well, I owned the clothing part of it. She owned she has a business for purses.
Got you. So it was like, let me bring
So I thought it was a good idea. You know, we weren't competing with each other. That's the way I looked at it. There was no competition because what I had to offer was nothing totally like what she had to offer. But there were a lot of things that she was doing that was not being upfront and truthful, and I learned from it.
So what was the red flags? Like what, because you said a lot of it was, because I know it's some people that's watching this and listening to this and like, okay, sound like something I'm going through.
Exactly.
So what was the red flags of the dishonesty? Like, how did you know? Because, you know, a lot of times when things happen, we be like, now, I seen it. You know, we can start pointing back.
Yeah. Well, the main thing that really, I started to watch how she would, facial expressions give a lot. They give away a lot.
Yeah.
And so I would watch how she would watch people coming to my side and purchasing things from me. So I watched that more so. And then I also had my younger daughter working with me, and she wanted to work my younger daughter but didn't want to pay her. I'm like, no, we don't operate like that. That's not, because my daughter works for me. She doesn't work for you. She works for me. And so if you want her to work for her, I pay my daughter. So what makes you think you're not going to pay my daughter?
Right.
And so that was another sign for me. And it just continuously, it just started. It was so much people. I found out that she wasn't paying the tax part of it, whatever she was supposed to be doing at the back. The people would come from the city. They would come to the, my oldest daughter, she was there at that time. And she said, she would call me and she would say, Mom, there's somebody here and they're looking for such and, the person. And because she hasn't paid her taxes and all of this. And so I'm going, what? I don't know what's going on here.
Right.
And so I was in a 6-month lease, and honey, I was praying all the way through that 6 months. I was like, I'm getting up out of here. Because she was just doing a lot of stuff that was crazy. But I learned. I learned things from her. I learned what I would not tolerate, and I certainly learned that I will not, if God, helps me, I will not go into another building with anyone. I can't.
So it wasn't even, because when you started out, I'm thinking it was like the traffic or whatever. It wasn't the business.
Right.
It was the collaboration, was the relationship.
Right. It was the personal. It was me learning who she was as a person.
Okay.
And then when all of the other things came about with the city, the people coming from the city, then I learned, okay, this woman is not business like.
Right.
She doesn't because I'm a professional.
Yeah.
So when I see stuff like this going, no, I got to come up out of here.
Right.
And so, but even in the midst of all of that, my oldest daughter, my youngest daughter, she would work part-time because she was going to school and all of that.
Okay.
But
you got 3 daughters?
I have 3 daughters.
Okay.
And so my oldest daughter, she began to work for me. And so when she worked for me, in January, to be exact, January the 31st, she began into a relationship, and so the relationship apparently wasn't good. Found out a lot of things, but January the 31st, my daughter was arrested.
Wow.
And so
arrested at the boutique?
No, not at the boutique.
Okay.
No, not at the boutique. She was arrested. She was supposed to go to work the next day.
Okay.
And that night, the night before, my husband and I got a phone call. And she was with the guy, and they were arrested.
Wow.
So I had never had a child in trouble, period.
Right. What did you feel in that moment?
I mean, I can't, every time I go back to the place, it takes me to a place where it's just very overwhelming. I've come a long way because all I did was cry, but it was very, very, it was devastating. If I can use the word, it was devastating.
I can only imagine.
So imagine your child going to prison or looking at, going to jail. We're going to start with jail, going to jail. And then I'm still trying to run a business. I'm going in the middle of the night to pick up my 2 grandchildren.
Okay.
So my life changed in a moment.
Instantly.
So
what happened? Why did she go to jail?
Because apparently the young man that she was with was using her car and his mom's car to rob stores.
Oh, wow.
And so not only that, he was abusing my child. It was so much in it. So many things that I found out. And he was making her rob the stores with him. After the first time, and I got a chance to speak with DA and all of that, but after the first, she did it willingly on the first time.
Okay.
But after the first time, she was made to do it, or she was going to lose her life. All of this came out since she's been in prison, but just imagine.
So she's still in prison?
No, she's out.
Oh,
and I'm going to get to that. Yeah, yes. I'm going to get to that because I know that God is he's an awesome God. Because my daughter was looking at 4 life terms.
Wow.
4 life terms. So imagine me having to continue to run the business, and for 2 weeks after this, I had to wrap my brain around all of this.
Absolutely.
I just say, I really had to reevaluate everything and just re-strategize and just soak all of this in and sit in this moment, because this is the season that I'm in, but I still have a business to run.
Right.
And so for 2 weeks I had to just stop. I had to stop.
Yeah. So let's take it back. So January 31st, you getting a call.
Of 2018.
2018, we getting a phone call, midnight.
Yes.
It's late in the night, wee hours,
Yes.
right? We get this phone call. The next day, what's next?
Oh gosh. What's next is a lot of crying because I couldn't figure it out. And I kept going. My husband and we kept going to the local jail.
Yeah.
Trying to get her a bond. Bond was being denied one after the other.
Yeah.
So the next day I just had to really sit into this and say, God, you got to help me through this.
Right.
Because if you don't help me through this, I'm not going to make it.
Right.
And I know that for certain.
Right.
I know that because it's a lot. and to know that my child was even involved in this.
Yeah.
And she didn't have to be.
You didn't even see it.
I did not see it.
And I think that's the thing.
I saw him.
Yeah, okay.
I saw him. I began to see him for who he was.
Gotcha.
But once, I feel like once you get into these bad relationships, they sort of take the mind of the young lady if they're not strong.
Yeah.
And my daughter was not strong, but I began to see him for who he was. But at that time, you know, he was threatening my daughter for, you know, her life, her children's life, all of these things. And I always say she was sleeping with the enemy. She was sleeping with the enemy, and there's no doubt about it, because when you know, more and more came out about him, and when he was locked up, and he's still there, you know. But I had to really wrap my mind, but I also had to continue life, and it was difficult. I had to run my business.
Where did the kids go?
With me and my husband.
Okay.
And so here now I have they're 12 and 9 now, but at that time they were 8 and I believe 4.
Okay.
And so, or 5. And so I had to I just had to figure this out. You know, I'm older now.
Yeah.
And I'm going through all these changes in my life and, you know, menopause, if I can just keep it real, all of these things. And so what am I supposed to do with 2 children? And so I had to go back through all of that and going through school and still run my business. And then I'm facing all of this. And I told my youngest daughter, because she was my model at that time, I told her, I said, listen, we got to get back out here. I gotta soak this in, but I got a business to run.
At what time frame? So now it's January. Now we about, let's just say February. We got 2 kids. You're going through menopause. Your husband trying to process it too. Like, you're trying to process all of these things. At what point did you say, okay, I gotta get back to work?
It probably was about that. I needed that 2-week break. Okay. I had to get that 2-week break.
Right.
I mean, I really had to wrap myself around this because it was ugly. It was really ugly. It was ugly because I knew what my daughter was facing. So that was hard for me itself, because I knew what she was facing.
Right.
And then I had to take care of these kids.
Right.
And so it took me about 2 weeks, and then I just said, God, you know, I cannot emphasize that enough. I just kept saying, God, you got to help me through this. Yes. You got to carry me through this. Right. And so that's what he did. And so after 2 weeks, my daughter, I said, Kendra, we got to get back out here and you got to model. And we would cry, wipe those tears, and we would get out there. I was the photographer. Resilient. But then once we start going with that, my daughter, my youngest daughter, who was my model, because I was a photographer, she got married, she got pregnant, she left.
Oh, okay.
So she left.
So what was the time frame?
Probably about 6 months.
Okay.
7 months. So that did give me a little time to be with her. But then here I am again. And, you know, it's kind of hard when you have, I grew up with self-esteem issues. I've always been that skinny girl. Yeah. I always been that person that felt like my nose was too large, my lips was too big. I was that person, so I didn't want to model. Even when my mom had me in modeling school, I didn't want to model. But I had no model. I had no one that I could depend on. Right. So I just talked to myself and I said, Charlynn, you got to do this. Yeah. But I did hire another young lady. But at that time, my followers were picking up. My customers were picking up. Okay. They didn't want to see her.
What time frame is this? Is this about 2019, 2020?
Yeah. Okay. 2019 going into 2020. Okay. But they weren't connecting with her. They weren't I wasn't selling with her. They didn't want to see her.
But you picked that up.
I instantly pick it up. Yeah. I picked it up because I feel like you can't just be out here looking at the amount of money that you're making. You got to look at everything from the back. You got to figure this junk out. You know, just to be honest, you got to figure this out. You got to look at those analytics. You got to look at, okay, is this not moving because she's there? Yeah. Is she too this? She too that? Is she too young? Right. Because you have to know who your audience is. You have to know who your customer is. And my customers are people that are about my age. Yeah. And, you know, and so I figured that out, and I quickly figured that out. And so I just had to put myself out there, and that's what I did. Okay. And when I did,
most people wouldn't have did that, right? Like they would have let that fear overcome them. Have you been completely isolating yourself in business? Like, you don't have people that you could do this business with. Well, you need coworkers, and that is why we created the Entrepreneurs Coworkers Community. This allows you to be able to develop relationships with other people in your community. So in the Entrepreneurship Coworkers Community, we have a complete Slack channel where you get to talk to other CEOs just like you. We give you a quiz to find out who you are and what type of CEO you are. And in this quiz, you get to meet other CEOs that may be more creative or traditional or hybrid. We have these CEOs there for you. But even taking it up a notch, we have local chapters in your city, from Atlanta to Dallas to New York to Houston to Chicago, chapters in your city where we're actually linking up every single month to work together, linking up to go to brunch together, having fun together, doing community service outreach. Like, this is a section of our life where we can really co-work and mingle with other people. It's time for you to get some coworkers, sis. And this community is completely free. Just because you're watching this podcast, all you have to do is stop, pause the podcast, click the link below, take the assessment, get in the community, and I'll see you there. Bye, coworker. Back to the episode. So now we're at 2019, 2020. Did your daughter get out of jail?
No, my daughter. No, at that time she was still in jail. She was at the local jail. She spent 3.5 years at the local jail.
Wow.
And so she had a mental breakdown.
Wow.
So when she had the mental breakdown, I felt like I had that mental breakdown because it was horrible.
What happened?
She would call. She just had a really bad mental breakdown, and that was in 2019.
Okay.
Also, she had the mental breakdown, and she would call because she was hearing voices that were telling her that her family was dead. And I would be on, at that time, everything was Zoom.
Right.
And so I would be at the court for her on the Zoom, and she would like call every 2 or 3 minutes. Mommy, are you dead? Where's Daddy? Is he dead? Where are my kids? I mean, she really had a mental breakdown.
Right.
But
all of this, now it's the pandemic.
Oh my
now,
God.
you know what I'm saying, your daughter is going through this. Your other daughter done left and when got married, had a baby.
Yes.
She done ran away from the situation. And where's your husband at this time? Like, how is he feeling?
He's probably the strongest person I have ever met in my life. And if it wasn't for him just really helping me through it too, because he owns his own business also. So he's trying to run his business, but he's very strong. He's very strong, and he just kept encouraging me and just saying, you can do this. We got this. We got to keep going. We have to keep going. And I'm telling you, there were days I would be bawling on the floor because I just felt like the load was so heavy. And when my daughter had that breakdown, it was horrible. Yeah. It was horrible. And I literally felt like I was losing my mind.
Wow.
But I just knew, again, God, you got to carry me through this.
Carry me.
And I knew
you know,
he would.
one thing that I hear you saying is, this started in 2018. And a lot of times when we are like going through things personally, especially as an entrepreneur, we feel like I always make this joke about how I read the story of Job, and I was like, now, God, how long was that period from when you took it and then you doubled it? You know what I mean? Like, was that 1 year, 2 months, 10 months? You know what I'm saying? But I'm hearing your story. You like, this is years going by, and you're still like, God, just carry me.
Yes, and that's what I read Job a lot. I read Job a lot because I felt like I was losing everything. And everything was coming against me. But I did, because at the end of Job, he got everything back and he doubled it. God doubled it because of his faith.
Yes.
Not because he didn't get tired.
No.
There were many times that Job did get tired, and that's the way I felt. I felt tired.
Yeah.
I felt like giving up, but I did not give up.
And everybody told him to give up.
Yes. Even his wife. His wife was the first one, you know. Right. But the good thing about it is my husband never told me that.
I love it.
Yes. And so that's what that kept me going as well. And those kids, those 2 girls, those girls were looking at somebody that was going to give them some stability. They needed that. And so I had that weight on my shoulders as well. I gotta stand tall for these girls. I would go in my restroom, I would cry, and I would wipe my tears, and I would come
back out.
I'm not gonna lose my business. I'm not gonna lose my mind. And I just told the devil, you are a lie.
Yes.
It's not gonna happen.
Yes. And one thing that I don't hear us talk about is the middle child. How was the middle child? What was she doing?
She was in her own world. She still is in her own world. She and I never had a close relationship. Okay. We never had a close relationship.
And you had a close relationship with the oldest and the youngest?
Yes. Okay, I always had a close relationship with her. We didn't have that. She was just that child that we just didn't have it. Yeah. We didn't have it. And to this day, we still don't have it. Yeah. And, there were many times that she faulted me for a lot of things that went on in her life. And, I would go to her plenty of times and just say, I'm sorry. I'm sorry about the decisions that I made or what you felt like I made. And then there came a point that I said, I'm not saying I'm sorry anymore. You're a grown woman now. Right. You're still thinking about things that happened years ago when you were a child. Come on now. Yeah. So
how did you feel in this moment? Because now you got a relationship with your oldest daughter, but she's in prison. You can't, and I already know, like, as a mother, like, I know my mom always wants to just keep me from everything. Yes. So your oldest daughter is in prison. Your youngest daughter done left she done exited the group chat. She done got married, all the things. And then your middle daughter, y'all relationship is in distress. How do you feel in this moment?
But you know what? My youngest daughter, even though she moved, we have the closest. We've always.
So she didn't just.
No. She didn't say peace. I'll see y'all. I'll see you when it's over.
I can't deal with this. I'm gonna get my band and my baby.
No, she is not that person. She is not. She stood 10 toes down. Yes, I love that. 10 toes down with us because, even though she had her life, and I understood that. I understood she had a life. I gotta go. I could not stop that. Right. And I was. Now I have to be very transparent. I was upset. I was angry with her because I felt like she left me. You left me with
like
it.
Yes. Abandoned me. Because it's like if at one moment it's all of this is together, and then it's like it keeps spiraling. And then a lot of times people that are entrepreneurs, we have a trait of like control. You know what I mean?
Yes.
And so that's why we start businesses, so we can control parts of our life. And like this side, a lot of times personally, we can't control things.
That's exactly right.
And so I just wonder like how you felt when you couldn't be in control and you had to like, okay, God.
Because and that's so true because I have that. I've always grown up with that type of personality that I wanted to control everything. I couldn't control this. I couldn't control my daughter being in prison. I couldn't control my youngest daughter going off and getting married and starting her own family. I couldn't control any of that. Only thing I can control is what I had in front of me. I could control that. I could begin to control how I would react to all of this. How I had to stand up for my daughter even in the jail. I had to stand up to those people. I got a boldness that I feel like came from God. There were many times I probably would have been arrested by my mouth because of my mouth, but I let them know that they weren't going to mistreat my daughter. Absolutely. That it was just hands down wasn't going to happen that way. And they began to respect me for that. And they came to me and they told me, when my daughter went from jail to prison, they would always tell me if there's anything that I needed to please contact me. So I gained that respect with them.
Just having that conversation and just standing up and being strong.
Yes.
So now we at 2020. Where's the business? How's the business doing at this point?
I was working part-time. I was working full-time and only still working part-time with my business. Okay. And then when the pandemic happened, of course, everybody's they're homebound now. And so that's when I began to see a turn that went for the better for my with my business. Yeah. And so my full-time job was working my nerves. Okay? Because people feel like you need them. Yeah. They feel like you need them even though you bring everything you bring to the table. You need them. And so I didn't need you. I was only there for the insurance part, to be very honest about it. Exactly. I only needed the insurance. Yeah. My husband owns his own business. Right. I don't need this. And I'm not going to kiss your butt. Yeah. I'm just not going to do it. Right. And so I was working really hard with my business but I wasn't allowed to because I had a full-time job, it didn't allow me to work full-time with my business. But when the pandemic happened, that gave me the chance to work full-time with my business. Okay. And I said, okay, I can do this. I can do this. And this gives me more time to really research, do more of what I needed to do to grow my brand.
Yes. So, I love that. So here what I want to tell people is that, it's a journey.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying? It's a journey to get there. So 2020, the business started to turn around. At this point, you started the business in 2018. What was your revenue in 2018?
Little to none.
And that's why I be telling people it takes
little
time.
to none.
It takes time.
So it really does. In 2019, little to none.
Yeah.
It really was. 2020, I said, okay. When I began to look at the analytics, I said, I see some stuff happening.
Yeah. It started
to grow.
It was
exactly.
an upward trend.
But also, I started to understand the analytic part of it, because when you go into this, you're only seeing those sales, and you're only saying that you see what you see, but do you really understand what's going on the back end of this thing?
Exactly.
And that's when I was starting to see that.
Okay, so the business is 2020. How's 2021? What did the business do?
Even better. Okay. It begins to scale even more.
Okay.
I'm not six figures. I'm not there. I have to be honest. I'm not there.
But I think people, and one thing that I always like to tell people is, there's a thing called progression, and you need to have progress. Like I tell people, a lot of times we trying to swallow the pie. We trying to go from 0 to 1 million. But why not 0 to 1,000?
Exactly.
1,000 to 2,000.
Exactly.
2,000. Like if you just take one step forward, you're going to get to where you're going. But you keep trying to run and sprint. Like let's go at the pace, God's pace.
That's exactly right.
I mean?
Because a lot of people think it's going to happen overnight, and there are a lot of people. There are some people that it may happen overnight.
Right.
I'm just not that person.
Right.
I'm still trying to get to where I need to go. I'm still far from where I want to be, but I see the growth since 2018. You have to sit down and you got to look at the things on the back end of this thing, and that's the good thing about it. I've been able to do that. And my daughter is home, again, my daughter, she was looking at 4 life terms. So I have all of that behind me.
What year did she come home?
She just came home in April of this year.
Oh, look at God.
Yeah. Listen, look at God.
Yes.
Because he stepped in. And I'm going to tell you something. Even in the day of her sentencing, I'll never forget. It was in July the 15th to be I'm sorry, not July. I think it was April the 15th.
Okay.
Somewhere around. No, she came home in April. February the 15th.
Okay.
I'm sorry. February the 15th, she was sentenced. She was being sentenced. Again, my daughter was looking at 4 years and 4 life terms. It came out the judge's mouth. Nobody was there. And I always say, God, you had me there to see what a miracle looks like. When there was no one in there but myself, and then, the judges and, the judge and the attorneys and all of that, and my daughter. And the judge, it came out of the judge's mouth, 20 years. He said she had to do 20 years. But I'm telling you, God is so faithful, and he's aligns. I have been praying just for God to keep angels around my daughter, and to keep the people that need to be aligned in this. That was my everyday prayer, to protect her and align the people that need to be aligned. Yes. And that's what he did, even down to the DA. My daughter went through 3 DAs. The first 2 DAs, she didn't stand a chance. They didn't want it. They wanted my daughter to do life with this. The 3rd DA was the angel that God sent, that I had been praying for. That when that judge told my daughter, you will do 20 years, that DA stood up and he spoke on behalf of my DA. And I want to know how many DAs will do that. Right.
So at February 15th, the judge said, I'm going to sentence you to 20 years. And the DA said, not today.
He stood up and he said what he said. I can't remember exactly what he said, but I do remember him saying, I believe, Your Honor, that we will never see her again. And the judge instantly changed. He had already, I can't even stress that enough. He had already said 20 years. He instantly changed it to 5 years. And my daughter walked out in 4 years and 3 months.
Ooh,
listen, I'm telling you, I have a reason. Yeah. So that's why I don't worry about my business. Right. Because God has already shown me what a miracle looks like. Absolutely. And he reminds me that if I'll take care of you through that process, what do you think I'll do for you in your business?
That's it.
Just being here.
Yeah.
This was a wow moment for me to be here, because I knew that God was aligning this. I knew that. I
love that you transparently got the opportunity to tell your story. And one thing before we go, I got one last question. I watch the Angie Martinez podcast, right? And she always asks these questions before she goes. And she says, on a scale of 1 to 10, how happy are you?
I'll say 100 now.
Oh,
I'll say 100. I'll say, and I'm going to say I have more of joy than happiness. You know, happiness is for the moment.
Yeah.
You're happy when it's, your happiness is happening when you're happy in that moment.
Yeah.
But what if something changes?
Right.
What if something changes? So I always say I have joy. I have joy because I made it through what I've made it through. Yes. And my business is doing well. But, you know, I got a lot to go. I got a long way to go still.
Let's go. Well,
yes,
listen,
let's do this.
Listen, this was a good episode.
Thank you.
I hope y'all took that and got encouragement. You may not be going through that exact situation, but I want you to hear the triumph of how sometimes we don't understand that God will just carry us. You know, like you don't have to have it all figured out. I'm pretty sure January 2018, you did not see that happen in February 15th.
Not at all.
You know what I'm saying? Of this year. So I want you guys to know that you just need to lean in and allow God to carry you on this journey, because entrepreneurship is giving very much ghetto. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe to keep watching these episodes so we can keep bringing real people that be going through real-ish. See you guys later.
Money spin, that's ghetto. Hold on, it's kind of ghetto being a CEO.